Good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 50th Annual Attleboro Area Football Hall of Fame Induction. My name is Pat Fitzgibbons, and first off, I would like to tell you that I wish I wasn't up here tonight. Not just on account I'm nervous and I've never been an MC, but because this is Tony Calcia's gig. It hasn't been easy since we lost Tony, and you all know how much he loved this event, or any event where there was a microphone. And I'm well aware that compared to Tony, I'll be pretty boring tonight, but let's face it, compared to Tony, everybody's pretty boring. But this past year, we also lost Bob Guthrie, and Coach Guthrie constructed this Rocketeer football program that continues to this very day. It's been pretty tough in Rocketeer Nation, and but we all love high school football, and it always brings us together. And I know they're here in spirit. For those of you who may be new to the banquet, allow me to outline tonight's agenda for you. Momentarily, we will introduce each inductee. When the inductee's name is called, they will enter the banquet hall and join their families. Once all 11 inductees are introduced and seated, our catering staff will direct your table to the buffet line. Once the meal is complete, approximately 8 p.m., we will present a more detailed program of Hall of Fame induction. At this time, I call your attention to the foyer doors directly behind me as I introduce the Attleboro Area Hall of Fame class of 2022. Let's have a nice round of applause for each inductee. From the Attleboro High School class of 2002, Mark McAloon. From the Bishop Feehan High School class of 2003, Carl Slate. You didn't tell me. From the North Attleboro High School class of 2010, Joe Cummer. From the Attleboro High School class of 2014, Tommy Burns. From the Bishop Feehan High School class of 2004, Frank Pesanello. From the North Attleboro High School class of 2012, Paul Norris. From the Attleboro High School class of 2014, Luke Morrison. From the Bishop Feehan High School class of 2006, Mike Montagna. From the North Attleboro class of 2013, Eric Beckwith. Tonight's first honorary inductee, my old buddy from Sunset Avenue, from Bishop Feehan, Mike McGrath. Mike and I grew up right across the street from each other, and I knew his dad Jim all my life, and I was a pallbearer at his funeral. He was a hell of a man, and Mike honored him by naming the Feehan field after his dad, Jim. Tonight's second honoree, also from Bishop Feehan, Kurt Smith. We will also be honoring North Attleboro's 38-game winning streak that spanned 4 seasons from 1997 to 2000. I had the pleasure of watching that streak, and it was unforgettable, and I doubt we will ever see anything like it down here again. It was Sully's first year as head coach after taking over from Ray Beaupre. North's first game that year was at Zavarian, whom they had defeated the year before at Community Field. North Attleboro lost that close, hard-fought game, and then the streak began, and it didn't end until 3 seasons later. Incredible. I remember about 10 years later after that, when Sully took over the baseball program, and I was helping him. We lost our first game at Foxborough, and to break the tension on the bus on the way home, I told the kids, don't worry, Sully will get over this loss. You just need to go out and win the next 38 games. I know all you players here tonight are having a great time seeing your old teammates, because I had that pleasure about 10 years ago here, so enjoy yourself. Page 2. I would ask former Bishop Feehan High School athletic director and football coach Paul O'Boy to please come to the podium to lead us in tonight's pre-meal invocation.
Got it, Pat. Thank you. How are you? Good to see you. Hi, Coach. How are you? How are you? Good to see you. Please join me in invoking God's blessing. Lord, we ask your blessing on all here present as we prepare for Thanksgiving. The school communities of Attleboro, North Attleboro, and Bishop Feehan celebrate the gifts of talent, determination, and courage you have bestowed upon the young men who will represent their school on Thursday. Protect them from harm, strengthen their arms and their spirit, that they may use well the abilities you have given them. In a special way, please shine your light on the individuals who we honor tonight. Bless us, our families, as we give thanks to you. Bless the meal that we will share and all those who prepare and serve it. Happy Thanksgiving. Amen. Amen.
Thank you, Paul. As previously noted, your table will be directed to the buffet line by our wait staff. Well, it's not my wait staff, but it's from the... please relax and enjoy this social time, and we will start the induction ceremony promptly at 8 p.m. Good evening. Once again, welcome to the 50th Annual Attleboro Area Football Hall of Fame. This is a little background information on this event. The year was 1970, which was the 50th anniversary of the Attleboro-North Attleboro Thanksgiving Day football rivalry. To celebrate that historic event, Attleboro High School Athletic Director Bill Madden decided to organize a banquet that brought together the former players, coaches, and friends from 2 communities. The evening was such a success that the banquet committee suggested that the event be held annually, that Attleboro's third high school, Bishop Feehan, also be invited, and that the event be a vehicle for a football Hall of Fame. Over the past 50 years, very few things have changed. We've moved the banquet from a Tuesday to a Saturday, replaced the reading of lengthy biographies with video technology, and refocused our mission to allow our guests more time to reconnect with each other. A high school Hall of Fame is certainly not unique, but a two-town, three-school Hall of Fame is. For the past 50 years, former players and coaches, friends, and followers of Attleboro, North Attleboro, and Bishop Feehan High School have come together to renew old friendships and rekindle memories that had their roots planted in their annual competition. Tonight, the two communities and three schools sit down and break bread with former teammates, coaches, classmates, townspeople, and friends to celebrate the past, acknowledge the present, and rekindle the relationship and camaraderie that the game of football has given us as players, spectators, coaches, and fans. To that end, we are glad you are here. Typically, this night brings together leaders from two great communities. Please allow me to recognize some of those dignitaries in attendance this evening. Attleboro High School Principal Kate Campbell. Bishop Feehan High School President Tim Sullivan. Attleboro High School Athletic Director Mark Houle. North Attleboro High School Athletic Director Kurt Kummer. Bishop Feehan High School Athletic Director Christian Schatz. Before I introduce the three head coaches here at the head table, let me say a few words about all the coaches from our little corner of the world here. Through the years, this area has produced some of the greatest coaches this state has ever known. But not only do they have such a thorough knowledge of the game of football, but probably more importantly, they know how to teach it to teenagers. But you should also know that these are very cultured men. Case in point, Mr. William Kummer is here tonight. And he's an assistant on Mike Strachan's staff at North High. He is a voracious reader and also regularly attends plays and classical music concerts in both Boston and New York. This past winter, Hawkeye, Jeff Dawes, and myself were chatting when Hawk said that he had seen the Four Seasons in Boston the night before. Dorsey and I inquired about the show, asking if Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons had played all their hits, songs like Sherry, Ragdoll, Walk Like a Man. Hawk then explained to us that the Four Seasons he saw was a violin concerto written by Vivaldi, to which Dorsey replied that he didn't know the Red Sox pitcher also wrote music. Hawk just shook his head and looked down his nose at us two rogues. Also, this past June, Hawk and his lovely wife Megan traveled to Paris. Now, before they left, Hawk was on one of those apps, Babbel or Rosetta Stone or something, brushing up on his French, which he probably should have learned from the little French nuns over at Sacred Heart anyway. But he said he wanted to do it to try and fit in while he was over there. You know, I told Hawk he could probably translate War and Peace perfectly, and he still wasn't going to fit in. But I think before he left, he learned just one word, which I believe is still pronounced the same way over there: Budweiser. But picture this, you're at the Eiffel Tower and walking around are all these little yuppie, manscaped Frenchies and, you know, in their skinny jeans, pointed European shoes, a beret and those little mustaches. And then there's Hawkeye. Do you think you might be able to pick out the American football coach? He was also heartbroken when he visited Notre Dame Cathedral, which of course over there is pronounced Notre Dame. And Father Pierre had to tell him that Touchdown Jesus wasn't there, but in South Bend, Indiana. And we're not even going to go and discuss him strutting around the French Riviera in his tight bathing suits. But reports are that they had a wonderful time. Sorry, Hawk, I couldn't resist. But now I would like to introduce the head coaches here at the head table, who want to offer their congratulations to their inductees, to recognize their captains and coaching staff, and then share a few thoughts about their season in Thursday's game. Our first speaker will be Bishop Feehan's fourth-year head coach, Brian Pinnabell.
Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. Well, what a great event. It's really cool that you have 3 different schools and 2 different communities getting together and renewing old rivalries and friendships. And it really speaks volumes for this unique thing that has been going on here for 50 years. I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame committee, the Attleboro Elks. I think I coached in the Southeast for a while, and they don't do anything like this. So this is something incredibly special. And so I think it's something that is very, very unique. I'd like to thank the Balfour Foundation and the Hall of Fame for providing so many scholarships to young men, giving them opportunities to move forward. That's obviously something as football coaches that we really strive to do, is not only coach kids on the field, but we want to help them get to the next level on the field and in life as well. High school football is one of the last great things we have in this country. And the young men that participate in, the people that participate in it, are special. They're special for the sacrifice they make. They're special because they're taught accountability. They're taught teamwork. They're taught sacrifice. And those are all things that when they leave their respective schools that they're going to take and they're going to use in life to make our world a better place. I know it did it for me. I know it did it for the coaches up here. And I really think that high school football and any extracurricular activity in general is something that is really, really important to add into the educational experience. I'd like to recognize the Bishop Feehan football staff. So we have Mike Germain, who's a graduate of Bishop Feehan, Mike Uroff, who is also prominent on the committee, Jake Curran, who is a graduate of Bishop Feehan, and are you a Hall of Famer, Jake, or not? I'm not sure. You should be. Christian Sermos. I'm very proud to say I have 6 Feehan alums on our staff, and that's one of the things that when I got to Feehan, I really wanted to build up, is having the alumni presence, because it's been a great history, and I think it's really important for our players to see that great history. I'd like to recognize our president, Tim Sullivan. Funny story about Tim. Tim did not attend any of our playoff games, and going into last night, we had won 2 in a row, and we had a brief conversation yesterday after a morning prayer service we have every Friday at Feehan. And I said to him, not being overconfident by any way, I said, if we win tonight, are you going to go to Gillette? And he was kind of mulling and really not sure. So on a serious note, though, Tim's been an incredible supporter of our school. he's done some amazing things, and I'm blessed to have him as my leader. I'd like to recognize Christian Schatz as well. He's our athletic director. It was his first hire. It was kind of a crazy situation, and I really feel like we share the same philosophies and kids and sports, and I'm very blessed to work along him every single day. Finally, Coach O'Boy. Coach O'Boy still coaches the defensive line for us, I believe, at 81 years old. He is, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. He has the enthusiasm of a 21-year-old. He is still sprinting around. He is still running from drill to drill. It's absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing. He is a complete blessing. Me and Mike have become friends, and I don't mind saying that. And I want to congratulate Mike on a great first year at North. That was a tough act to follow, following Coach Johnson all those years. Got his team to Division III semifinals. They play hard-nosed football. They play it the right way. And Mike's a great role model for his players. So congratulations to you for a great year. Also, congratulations to Coach Winters. Watching their offense and how they scheme things, he's got a tremendous offensive mind. I came across him when he was at Silver Lake a few years back, and we played a couple of great games. And some congratulations to him. They made the Division I state playoffs this yeof had a tough game against St. John's Prep, but had an incredibly successful season. So congratulations to you. I'd like to congratulate all the all of the nominees and all of the inductees, but particularly the Bishop Feehan inductees. Coach Kurt Smith, okay. Yep, absolutely. Mike McGrath, who our stadium's named after. Carl Slate, Frank Pesanello, and Mike Montagna, who actually came and spoke to our team a couple weeks ago. We do an alumni speaker every Thursday, and Mike came in and spoke to our team a couple weeks ago, and it was absolutely awesome. And I look forward to having him come back, speak to our kids again. Quickly about our season, a few weeks ago, we were getting ready for our first playoff game against Peabody. Here we are, the 14th seed. Had to win 4 in a row to get in. Nobody gave us a chance. We're going into Peabody. They're averaging 38 points a game. They're 8-0. They've run roughshod through their schedule. And I said to our players on the Thursday before we were going to go to Peabody, I said, when the book is written about this season, about this group, there are 3 words that we're going to describe this group. And it's been our mantra throughout this great run we've had: grit, trust, and belief. We had 26 seniors on our roster this year, an incredible class. Not all of them are frontline players. We had a lot of role kids, and those kids were just as important as some of our top-line guys. We started 0-3. We got our tails beaten by North. We got our tails beaten by Attleboro, and then we went to St. Mary's and lost an absolute heartbreaker to a team that's going to the Super Bowl next week. Here we are, 0-3. And I think a lot of teams, if they didn't have the character of the senior class, it could have been a long season. They weren't going to allow that. And as I said, we won our last 4, make the playoffs. We end up as a 14 seed, and then we run off these 2 just ridiculous victories. We go into Peabody and put up 48, and then we go into Reading, who had beat us last year in the first round. Our kids were joking it was the revenge tour. I was just worried about defending that Division I quarterback myself. And we beat them. And then last night we lost a really tough one to KP, down 17-0 at the half, came back, made it a game in the last possession, just didn't have enough time, lost 17-10. We were the lowest seed since the MIA has gone to the statewide tournament to get to the state semifinals. So I think that says a lot about our kids. I do want to recognize our captains. Eddie Sinelli, who plays offensive tackle for us, is here. And you've probably seen him in the paper the last couple of weeks, but Nick Yanchuk is also here as well. Our other 3 captains are at a religious retreat that our school puts on, so they were unable to be here tonight. I do want to say something about Nick. I did say it in the newspaper, and I will stand by it. I think he's the best running back in the state. He's had 173 carries for 1,834 yards and 25 touchdowns in only 9 games. He missed a couple games due to injury. So it's been a great year for him, and a shout out to our offensive line, too, who paved the way for him and did an incredible job. Finally, we're going to finish our season, unfortunately, to a degree, as I've loved this senior class so much. We play Bishop Stang on Thanksgiving at McGrath Stadium at 10 o'clock, and hopefully we'll finish it on the right note. But thank you all. This is a great event, and it's a great community, and I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving, and God bless everybody.
Next, the head coach of Attleboro High School in his first year as head coach, Jim Winters.
Thanks, Fitz. It's an honor to speak to you tonight on behalf of Attleboro High School football. Thank you to the Attleboro Area Hall of Fame for putting together this great event. As a newcomer to this event, I am truly impressed by this great tradition. I would like to thank the Balfour Foundation for their generosity providing scholarships to graduating seniors for the last 2 decades. It's an outstanding gesture that hundreds of students have benefited from. Coming into Attleboro late in the year, I was extremely fortunate to have outstanding senior captains already in place. These players are always the hardest workers and are tremendous leaders both in the classroom and on the field. If the captains can stand and be recognized, Anthony Salviati, Isaiah Miranda, and Spencer Shirk. I'd like to thank the coaching staff for all the dedication and hard work. This is probably the best staff that I've ever been a part of, and I appreciate all the long hours and hard work they put in this year. Our freshman coaches, Coach Foster, Coach Fitzgerald, Coach Ribeiro. Our varsity coaches, Coach Burns, Coach Rushlow, Coach Starkey, Coach Boyd, Coach Whitefield, Coach Hoos, and another Coach Burns. I'd also like to thank our administration, Athletic Director Mark Hool and Principal Kate Campbell for all their help and support throughout the year. Congratulations to both North Attleboro and Bishop Feehan on your final 4 runs through the playoffs. It was exciting to follow along with you guys as you advanced. I would like to thank our seniors for the leadership they provided on our team this season. Our season started off strong, and we're able to return to the playoffs. The reward, a visit to St. John's Prep University, where we had the privilege of playing against several NFL prospects. I'm looking forward to my first North Attleboro Thanksgiving Day game, full of great traditions with Hilda and decorating the helmets. Most importantly, the reason we're gathered here tonight. Congratulations to all this year's inductees. A tremendous achievement by North Attleboro with a 38-game undefeated streak. The likes, like Fitzy said, it will probably never be seen again. Thank you to both Kurt Smith and Mike McGrath for all your contributions and leadership you provided to all the students throughout the years. Congratulations to Joe, Paul, and Eric from North Attleboro, Carl, Frank, and Mike from Bishop Feehan, and from Attleboro, Mark, Tommy, and Luke. I've had the privilege to coach alongside Coach Tommy Burns this year. I watched him instill upon our players the characteristics that I am sure helped to mold him into a great football player. Hard work, dedication, knowledge of the game, mental and physical toughness, the love of the game, and for the love of your teammates. The Hall of Fame is a tremendous honor reserved for only an elite few. On behalf of Attleboro football, I'd like to extend our sincere congratulations to all the inductees. You all deserve it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Finally, the head coach of North Attleboro High School. From the North Attleboro High School class of 1986, in his first year as head coach, Mike Strachan.
Thanks, Fitzy. I really appreciate it. And I also want to thank the Attleboro Area Hall of Fame. This is a great tradition. I'm so grateful to be part of it, and it's a fantastic event. Just think about it. It's a group that's awarded over $300,000 in scholarships to 287 graduating seniors since 2001. Remarkable. So thank you very much for what you've done. Let me start by saying to the inductees, congratulations from Attleboro, Mark McAloon, Tommy Burns, and Luke Morrison. I'd love to see you here. It's a great tradition, great respect for you. From Bishop Feehan, Carl Slate, Frank Pessaloni, and Mike Montagna, congratulations. And from North Attleboro, Joe Cummer, Paul Norris, and Eric Beckwith. Congratulations. Such an honor for all you to be recognized for your accomplishments, so congratulations. I also want to congratulate the honorary inductees Mike McGrath and Kurt Smith, an honor well deserved. Congratulations. I'd also like to congratulate Coach Sullivan and recognize the North Attleboro 38-game winning streak, which occurred from 1997 to 2000. To all the former players and coaches from those teams, a great accomplishment and what a great run. Congratulations to you all. I'd also like to congratulate Coach Winters on a great first year at Attleboro High School. Congrats to your players and your staff, and to Coach Pinnabel, to your players and coaches for a great year, making the Final Four in Division II. I really enjoy our camaraderie and the healthy rivalry that we all share. For us, it was a successful season. I believe we play in one of the toughest leagues in the state. And one thing's for sure in the Hockomock League, there's no easy games. Each and every week, you're challenged to play your very best. I believe we did that by beating some really extremely good football teams this season, and were rewarded by being the number 2 seed in the state. We ended our year 7-3, made it to the Final Four by beating Oliver Ames in the first round of the playoffs, and beating a very good Bill Rickett team at Community Field in the second round. We came up a little short last night to a very good Wakefield team, but I was extremely proud of our football team. With all that, it could not be done without the possible that dedicated staff. I'm very fortunate to have a staff we're able to put together. I'd like to recognize them at this time. Tony Jodas, Billy Cummer, Stan House, Frank Strachan, Anthony Perry, Pat Bannon, Jay Moda, Sean Walsh, Jack Strachan, Chip Poria, and Dan Hayes. The time and effort and knowledge that these coaches bring to our program is admirable, and I'm proud of the job that they do for our kids every single day. So thanks, guys. So it's a little different now that Fitzy's brought that vision to me about Hawkeye. I don't really know what to do with that, so thanks, Fitz. In addition, I'd like to recognize and thank Kurt Cummer as our athletic director, and Pete Havlin, our principal, for all the support that you've given us this season. Thank you. Finally, I'd like to recognize our senior leadership and our senior captains. Our senior captains are not only talented football players, but they're leaders in our community and in our school. I'd like to recognize them, so guys, please stand when I call your name. Greg Berthume, Zach Gallagher, and Nate Schultz. It was so enjoyable. These captains took the challenge every time they took the field, whether it be practice or games, and it was such an enjoyable time for us to go to practice and coach them every single day. It made it fun as coaches, so I want to thank them. It really made it easy for us. Again, I want to reiterate, without these captains and without these seniors, you know, the run that we had this season wouldn't have been able to be done. So I really do appreciate them for every single day that they've come to practice and everything that they've done in hard work. And we know that we've got one big game left. And with that said, it's in closing that how important this rivalry is and how lucky we are to be part of such a storied tradition. From Hilda to direct decorating of the helmets to the history of the Attleboro Area Hall of Fame, our community is extremely fortunate to have such traditions and honors embedded in its fabric, and this is a testament to all that. I want to thank you all. I want to wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving and good luck to the coaches. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Before recognizing this year's inductees, I would like to express our gratitude to several people and organizations that have made tonight's festivities possible. The Attleboro Elks, who have been our home for the banquet for many years and who will hopefully be willing to have us back for many, many more. Young's Caterers, especially Carol, for her patience in dealing with our ever-changing head count. Nally Championship Awards, who produce our plaques and have been generous to eliminate all of our shipping costs. I don't know how much it costs to ship it from Plainville to here now, but you could have thrown them in a van. But thank you. Tyler Heaton and the Sun Chronicle for their continued support when it comes to covering our local high schools, as well as covering and promoting our event here tonight. The Balfour Scholarship Foundation for their assistance in rewarding 15 area football players each year with scholarship money. Ray Bozzano and AV Media Services, going above and beyond in producing the evening and helping to ensure a memorable evening for all of us. Double ACS, Attleboro's cable TV station, especially Jim Jones and Dave Angel, for generously donating their time and equipment to create the videos that you'll see tonight. Being able to have these videos is a huge upgrade to our night, and we can't thank them enough. Finally, the Hall of Fame committee members, Mike Cataldo, Nate Cote, Kevin Deschaines, Chris Rushlow, Chris Servant, John Sullivan, and Mike Uroff. Please join me in a nice round of applause for all the aforementioned contributors. At this point, I will hand off to, well, I won't hand off because I never get to handle a football, but I will pass this over to Chris Servant, who will handle the rest of the night, and he's pretty good at this stuff.
Thank you very much. As my wife told me many times ago, you're not as funny as you think you are, so I won't even attempt to match any of that humor. Thank you, Pat. As Pat said, my name is Chris Servant. I'm a 1966 graduate of Feehan High School, and like Pat, it is my privilege to be given the honor to induct tonight's honorees. First, I will announce the inductee's name. Then I will read a brief summary of the inductee's accomplishments. My remarks are an extraction from a more detailed biography contained within the programs on your table. I highly recommend that at the evening's conclusion, you take that program with you and take time to read those biographies. After my remarks, we will play a short highlight video of the inductee with a commentary from a coach, teammate, or friend on either of these screens. It'll be the same shown on both screens. At the conclusion of the honorees' video, I will formally welcome them into the Hall of Fame, and at that time, the inductee will come forward to the podium to receive his Hall of Fame plaque from the school's present head coach and briefly pose for a picture. Those are the basics, so let's get started. From the Attleboro High School class of 2002, Mark McAloon. Mark's career as a quarterback didn't begin until the very first game of the 1999 season against Coyle Cassidy. Mark passed for over 800 yards and threw 6 touchdown passes his first year. He led a 7-win and 4-loss AHS team to the EAC League Championship and a berth in the Division III Super Bowl against Salem High School. Mark finished his career with 3,071 passing yards and 20 touchdown passes. Mark's leadership style was one of a doer and not a talker. Mark's personality was a calm driving force, often stating, "I'm just doing my job."
Going into the '99 season, head coach Cliff Sherman just graduated Nick McNamee, and that whole crew had left, but he was looking for a quarterback. And talking to the freshman coaches, you know, hey, you got an athletic body down there and whatnot, and they said, yeah, you know, we've got Mark McAloon, but he's never played quarterback before. He never played quarterback in Pop Warner, so he was always a wide receiver and defensive back. So, you know, going into the summer and workouts and passing leagues and whatnot, Mark was a 4th string quarterback on the depth chart. And going into scrimmages and whatnot, he was still playing, you know, defensive back and receiver, getting some snaps at quarterback. And, you know, we looked at, you know, Cliff looked at Mark and his athleticism. He was, you know, as far as had a good arm, he had good hands, and was able to take command. So he didn't even start the jamboree. He didn't even know he was going to be a starting quarterback till our first game against Coyle Cassidy. Strengths, as you know, Mark brought to the table was the fact that he was intelligent. He was a smart young man. He could take the game plan from Cliff and was able to handle the in-game situation, was able to help Coach Sherman in the reading of the defenses and what he was seeing out there. He was also elusive, especially in pass rush. He was able to move forward and get his positive yards. He did take his sacks, but most of the time he prevailed and got positive yardage. Mark was very confident in what he was doing, but he was very humble. He always thought about his team first. It was never about him whatsoever. It was always, I'm just doing my job. Whatever I need to do for the benefit of our team. A 3-year quarterback, worked really hard, developed his craft, and groomed to be a leader amongst his peers, but respected, and always was doing his best for the Attleboro Blue Bombardiers. Mark was able to take his talents and go to the collegiate level, where he played 4 years at St. Anselm's. And so I credit him, or I'm sure Coach Sherman credits him for everything that he learned at Attleboro, and he was able to transfer those talents at the next level.
The Attleboro Area Hall of Fame proudly welcomes Attleboro High School's Mark McAloon. No, unless your family wants to take an individual photo, it's just a video. Yeah, thank you. Again, the honorees, just receive them unless someone comes up. Fine. From the Bishop High School class of 2003, Carl Slate. Carl cannot be with us tonight. Accepting on his behalf will be Paul Oboy. From the Bishop High School class of 2003, Carl Slate. At 6 feet 3 inches and 200 pounds, Carl Slate brought a physicality to all three phases of Bishopian football during the 2002 season. Slate was a dynamic return man. During the 2002 season, Slate returned a 50-yard punt for a TD against Durfee and another touchdown on Thanksgiving Day in a win over St. Raphael's. Defensively, Slate was a hybrid linebacker strong safety who collected 50 tackles in 2002. Slate's physical presence on defense shut down Duxbury's star running back in a Super Bowl win that capped off a perfect 12-win and 0-loss season for Bishop Feehan, keeping alive Feehan's 25-game win streak.
Yeah, I know in 2001, in my first year at Bishop Feehan, I came up in the summer to just kind of watch the kids work out, they run around on the field, and coming from Somerset in a 2-8 football team, I got to see 60 or 70 kids out there running around on the soccer field, throwing footballs around and working out. And one of the kids that stuck out to me right away was Carl Slate. Carl Slate was about 6'3", about 205, 210 pounds. And I don't think I had a kid on my whole football team like that at Somerset. So when I saw him run around in his athleticism, he stuck out. And what stuck out to me most about Carl was his athleticism and his strength. It's rare that you see a kid that age, and at the time Carl was a sophomore, going into his junior season, to see that type of athleticism. Those kids stand out right away. That Division I type body with the athleticism to match is rare. And so when I found out that he was, a sophomore going into his junior year, I was really excited, and when I saw him on the field, he was playing cornerback. And I thought it was crazy. He's a cornerback? For me, defensive end, put his hand on the ground and go get the quarterback, And I just watched him play, and Carl could do it all. He could throw the ball, he could catch the ball, he could run with the ball. He could defend players in space, with that type of size and athleticism. Was just outstanding. And what did he do for us? The better question is, what didn't he do for us? Carl was a humble player. And in today's world, where kids really trying to excel and specialize at certain sports and certain things, Carl brought so much to the team and so much to the overall makeup of our team, that he had the ability to change positions. he was the number 1 or number 2 kid at multiple positions on offense and defense. And he had the humility to be able to say, you know, hey, I want to be a cornerback, but we need you to play outside linebacker. And he did. And not only did he in his senior year, but he did it very well. He was tough, he was fast, he was smart, he could tackle on offense. I saw him running around at tailback, and I'm like, wow, that kid must be the star. He's got 1,000 yards. When we needed a tight end, Carl said, I'll do it, in his senior year. And it's tough. When you're learning the game of football, there's so many things. There's so many specialized positions that all fit together, that mesh together. And it's hard to learn one of them. And to change in your senior year and go from being an all-star caliber, cornerback and tailback to a tight end and an outside linebacker, and to be a championship caliber, all-star caliber player, speaks not only of his ability, but what kind of person and humble player he was to accept his role and to be an all-star with him. That's what's most remarkable, I find, about him. And not only was he good at football, but he could return punts and kicks. He was an outstanding basketball player too. So when I reminisce about former players and former times on the field, the thing that really stands out about Carl, beside his physical attributes and his acumen on the field, was his humility. I think that's important today.
The Attleboro Area Hall of Fame proudly welcomes Feehan High School's Carl Slate. Accepting on his behalf will be football award. Okay, we'll get Paul. We'll get it to you after. Yeah, maybe you can take it out of the box. All set. Okay. From the North Attleboro High School class of 2010, Joe Cummer. Joe Cummer played the game with a combination of intelligence, determination, and toughness. With a heart much larger than his frame, Joe was always willing to do whatever his team needed. As a sophomore, registering 24 tackles with 7 assists and 2 fumble recoveries. As a junior, he accrued 30 tackles. Offensively, he completed 68% of his passes for over 500 yards and 4 touchdowns while rushing for another. Joe's senior season, he completed 71 passes for 13 touchdowns. Joe rushed nearly 100 times for over 400 yards and 11 more touchdowns, and he was awarded the L.G. Balfour Trophy for the excellence on Thanksgiving Day.
Joe Cummer was a 5'10", 160-pound quarterback and defensive back for us. Joe was a prominent player for us for 3 seasons, ended up being thrust into the role of starting safety in his sophomore year, and then went on to play on both sides of the ball more and more each year, and finished as a senior starting quarterback. Well, as a sophomore, he was small, he was undersized, but pound per pound, one of the toughest kids we've ever had out there. He was very smart, he had great football instincts, and he just had to be on the field, and he did a great job as a starting safety as a sophomore. In his junior year, he continued to play great on defense with us, but we also needed him to play some offense, and so he ended up actually splitting time with a senior quarterback. As a junior, he completed 70% of his passes, and what he gave us, though, was the ability to add a run dimension to the game in our spread offense that made us much more difficult to defend. Joe had a great game against King Philip on the road over there. It was middle of the third quarter, and we were down by 14 points. And we had been alternating our quarterbacks, but given the nature of the game, we decided to stick with Joe in the second half, and his ability to both run and throw kept King Philip off balance and led us to a great comeback win, a 20-17 win on the road. As a senior, Joe was the man at quarterback, and the depth wasn't as luxurious as maybe it had been before, and we really couldn't afford to play him on defense and lose him on defense. So he was our man on offense, had a great senior season, both running and throwing. He threw for 13 touchdowns his senior year, but he also rushed for another 11 touchdowns. Joe was also the quarterback in, I think, one of the most emotional games in North Attleboro football history. It was a game over in Mansfield, a comeback victory over there, 28-25 victory, the game after the death of Captain Kyle Vandegiesen. Joe was one of those guys that got every ounce of ability out of his body. So there's plenty of guys who are blessed with good bodies or big bodies in football, but they don't always achieve or reach their potential. Joe Comer, you could safely say without a doubt, worked to his potential and got every ounce out of his body. Joe was just so smart and tough when he was on the field and very focused on his assignment. He knew and deeply understood what he was supposed to do on both sides of the ball, so that made him great. The other characteristic that I think set Joe apart was that he was just so humble. He was one of those guys that would gladly give up any of his personal accolades if it meant his team could get another victory. Joe was a great student as well, so after high school he went down to Georgia Tech, where he earned both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in electrical engineering and computer science.
The Attleboro Area Hall of Fame proudly welcomes North Attleboro High School's Joe Comer. From the Attleboro High School class of 2014, Tom Burns. Tom was a three-year starter for AHS, playing offense and defense. Tom's mental toughness was second to none. He was always prepared for all situations, whether it was in a game or just practice. As a captain, he was a true leader and respected by peers and coaches alike. Tom became part of the 1-2 punch with tight end Luke Morrison as the favorite targets for Hall of Fame quarterback Tim Walsh. He also returned punts and kickoffs, where he accrued 285 all-purpose yards. Tom finished his career with 265 rushing yards and 800 yards receiving with 11 touchdowns.
First, I want to congratulate Tommy Burns on this tremendous accomplishment. He well-deserved. Tommy had tremendous football IQ. He was always the first one at practice, always the last one to leave. He was always there for his teammate. I tell people that if there was a way to describe him, if you had to describe an Attleboro football player, if it was a definition in Wikipedia, you'd have Tommy Burns as part of that. So, really, again, well-deserved. And one of the things that, one of the questions that was asked to me, what makes him, what is his strengths? He's a quiet leader, absolutely a quiet leader. He always led by example. And when we talk about work ethic, Tommy's work ethic was second to none. He was someone that you could always count on. He always made big plays for us. But really the way that he carried himself on and off the field was really second to none. And he was a great competitor for us. One of the other things that was brought to my attention, what memory do you have about Tommy? And I have a particular moment in the Mansfield game. It was a shootout with Mansfield. I think the final score was 49-42, and we were really down at halftime going in, and Tommy made a one-handed catch that kind of reset us and brought us back into that game. And he was also the leading tackler that day with 11 tackles. I think that was just what he was about. When the team needed something done or needed to rally, he was a guy that we could always count on. And he took that, the way that he carried himself at Attleboro to college. I was got a call from Framingham State University, the head coach Tom Kelly, who I coached with when I was there, and he said, "Strack, do you have any players for me?" I said, "Yeah, I get this kid Tommy Burns." And he met Tommy. He said, he comes back. He said, "Strack, he's a peanut." I said, "Yeah, you just wait." And by his second year at college, Tommy was starting for them, and by his fourth year, he was the leading tackler, the second leading tackler on the team. He was a captain. He was all league. He did everything for that program, just like he did at Attleboro. So really proud of what he's done and the accomplishments that he's had. Tommy's also on our coaching staff. He coaches the defensive backs and wide receivers. He approaches that the same way he played. He's always prepared for practice. He's always trying to make the kids better. He's always, on huddle with them, showing them where they can improve. But and the relationships that he has with his players is, again, second to none, just like he did when he was a player. So we're very fortunate that he's back in our program, but Attleboro is very fortunate to have a kid like Tommy working with the youth of Attleboro.
The Attleboro High School Area Hall of Fame proudly welcomes Attleboro High School's Tom Burns. From the Bishop Feehan High School class of 2004, Frank Pesinello. Frank Pesinello was an imposing and physical two-way guard and defensive end. He anchored an offensive line that protected quarterback John McCoy and a defensive front that pitched 5 shutouts. A late season tilt between Feehan and Somerset decided the Eastern Athletic Conference, and Pesinello came up big again where the Shamrocks needed it most. With Somerset driving late in the game, Pesinello sacked the Raider quarterback, ruined the drive, and helped preserve a 7-6 Shamrock win. Feehan went on to three-peat as state champs, thanks in large part to the experience and desire of Frank Pesinello.
Frank Pesinello. You know, when looking back at my time at Bishop Feehan, just so blessed to have so many athletes. Frank, if he played for me prior to Bishop Feehan, might have been a fullback, you know, a skill position player, a tight end, a quarterback, a kid with the ball in his hands. For us, on offense, Frank played guard. On defense, there's nothing he couldn't do. He played linebacker in his first couple of years and then put his hand on the ground, played defensive end, and was a specialist at sacking the quarterback, and even had the strength and the athleticism to play nose tackle, which he did that as well. So he was more like the Swiss Army knife for us. And Frank was about maybe 6'1", about 205 and 210 pounds, but strong and tough and could run. The wonderful thing about football is there's a position for everybody. You don't have to be big. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to be athletic. You don't have to be fast. There's a place for you on the field. And it's the awesome thing, I believe, about football, you know, that there's a place for you. And Frank fulfilled so many roles for us, and he did them so well. And the funny thing about it is, he didn't really do it on offense in those skill position players. He did it under the radar. He did all the dirty work, and he did it really, really well and tough. One thing that really stands out to me about Frank on the field was his just tenacity on defense and his strength and the way he used his hands and leverage, but how he ran on the edge on offense. We did a lot of, you know, sweeps, toss sweeps on the edges of the defense. And Frank, who was so athletic, he could have been the guy, you know, backfield carrying the ball. He's leading the sweep out there and just mashing people on the edge of the defense. And he was really, really good at it. But really, another thing that we overlook a lot in football is special teams, the 3 aspects of the game. And the one cog in the whole thing, whether you're punting the ball or kicking a field goal, is that guy that specializes in long snapping. I truly believe that Frank Pesinello could have played professional football, snapping a football. That's how good he was. I've never seen a kid, and I've coached thousands of them at this point after 30 years. You know, I've never seen a kid snap the ball with that kind of accuracy and zip and placement on the ball. He was outstanding at it. And we overlook that, right? But some guys made a living. Joe Cardona, Patriots, has made a living being a long snapper. He was that good. He was that good. And beyond that, an outstanding baseball player. One of the hardest things to do in all sports is to hit a round ball with a round bat squarely. And not only did he do it well, he did it over 400. You know, hit bombs on the baseball field and was a catcher, which is not an easy thing to do. You know, he was the field general on the baseball field and had a rocket for an arm, and he played guard for the football team. He was an all-star for us, a championship caliber player, but another outstanding citizen too off the field, which we're really proud of. This is well deserved.
The Attleboro Area Hall of Fame proudly welcomes Bishop Feehan High School's Frank Pesinello. From the North Attleboro High School class of 2012, Paul Norris. Paul Norris was a 3-year starter at defensive end and a 2-year starter at tight end. One of Paul's favorite memories was an overtime victory over Stoughton during his senior year. With North Attleboro trailing by 7, Norris would make a great toe-tapping catch in the back of the end zone. His defensive career would see 81 tackles, 32 assists, 11.5 sacks, 4 fumble recoveries, and 1 interception. He would be the team's leading receiver as a senior with 11 catches for 136 yards and 3 touchdowns and a 2-point conversion.
Paul Norris was a 6'2", 210-pound defensive end and tight end for us. He played for us for 3 seasons, 2009, 2010, and 2011. Well, when he came to us as a sophomore, he had good size and he had a great motor, but was kind of a raw talent. He, like a lot of young kids, just thought his job was to go chase the quarterback or chase the football, but once he learned how to play the position, he was a great defensive end for us. In his junior year, in 2010, he played on a great team that went 10-1, and was loaded with talent and a lot of future Hall of Famers, actually. But he was a standout defensive end for us that year, involved in over 45 tackles, I believe. On the field, he was very disruptive to other teams' offenses, so he was great at taking on blocks, penetrating, and chasing things down to the opposite side of the field, especially effective in our stunt game because he was a big body who had quick feet. In his senior season on defense, he was a great leader for us, had, again, over 40 tackles, but also had 9 sacks that year that at the time was a school record for sacks. So he was a very important player for us that year. And then on the offensive side in his senior year, we actually used him a lot more. In the pass game, we used the tight end much more effectively. He had 11 catches that year for 3 touchdowns on offense as well. Paul played a prominent role in what we believe was the first overtime game ever played in North Attleboro history. So it was against Stoughton at Community Field his senior year. And Stoughton took the ball first in overtime and went ahead and kicked the extra point, so they were up by 7 points. On our first play overtime, we threw a crossing pattern to Paul. He made a great catch on the opposite side of the field to stay in bounds. That put us within one point, and we made the decision to go for 2, and we ran a little tight end screen that Paul executed perfectly, and he walked into the end zone for the winning points, and the rowdy crowd stormed the field. It was a great moment at Community Field. In his senior year, he was named Hockomock League All-Star, Sun Chronicle All-Star, and then he was also named to the prestigious Shriners All-Star Game, where he went on and played in the All-Star Game that year and got 5 sacks and was named the team's most valuable defensive player. And after graduating from North, Paul was recruited by Sean Walsh, an Attleboro native, who was coaching at Bentley University at the time. So Paul went on to play at Bentley. He was a 3-year starter and was the captain his senior year. And Paul was also a great student and graduated from Bentley magna cum laude with a degree in finance.
The Attleboro Area Hall of Fame proudly welcomes North Attleboro High School's Paul Norris. From Attleboro High School class of 2014, Luke Morrison. Luke Morrison was a fierce player at defensive end and tight end. Luke was a 2-year starter on offense and defense. Luke scored a touchdown in all but 1 game his senior year during Attleboro's historic 9-win and 2-loss season. His exceptional senior year defensively consisted of 58 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, and 11 sacks for a loss of 120 yards. In the 2013 Thanksgiving game, Luke recorded 4 sacks for a loss of 52 yards in a 34-19 win. He finished his career with 113 tackles, 15 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 1 fumble recovery.
I wanted to congratulate Luke on this huge accomplishment and well-deserved. Luke was an imposing player. Like Tommy, a very quiet leader for us. He was a captain of his senior team, but both strong on both sides of the ball. Offensively, defensively, he was the second leading tackler on our team with 55 that year. But he's always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. And you know, he was a player that our opponents had to prepare for. He was dominating, whether it be at tight end or defensive end, and he always seemed to be in the right place at the right time. Luke was just a character guy. I mean, the way that he worked in the classroom, on the football field, he kind of approached it the same way. I think he was the top 5% of his class academically, and really a dominant player in the Hockomock League his senior year. And you know, one of the things that I talk about, one of his strengths, is the way that you know, he just approached the game very quietly. But one thing was for sure, when we went up against our opponents, they knew what Luke was. They knew what he was capable of. And as a tight end, he was strong. He could block. He could catch the ball. And you know, he was just someone that we felt that we had to, you know, when we needed a play to be made, Luke was there for us. He was the guy that we would really kind of you know, target and go after. And there's so many memories about Luke in his career. I had the fortune to coach him for 1 year as a senior. And they talk about, you know, what was this one moment, though, one item here that you think about when you think about Luke Morrison. And it was a game against North Attleboro, Thanksgiving 2013. I think he had 4 sacks in the first half. Kind of set the tone for that game. And then, you know, it was a very close game that year. And to end the game, he made a huge catch down our sideline to kind of seal the game for us. And he that was the way he approached every game. You know, he was dominant whenever we played. I think when we played Xaveri in the South Sectional Final, you know, he had a dominating performance in that game as well. And what he did is he took all the things that he did at Attleboro and took them to Bentley, you know, Bentley University, where he had a very solid career. And you know, I'm very proud that many of the kids from that class went on to play college football. But this is a well-deserved acknowledgement of what Luke did at his time at Attleboro High School.
The Attleboro Area Hall of Fame proudly welcomes Attleboro High School's Luke Morrison. From the Bishop High School class of 2006, Mike Montagna. After 4 straight Super Bowl victories, Shamrock coach Rob McCoy looked to a second-year starting quarterback, Mike Montagna, to be the leader of the Feehan's offense, and Montagna did not disappoint. Against first-place Attleboro, a game with EAC title implications, opposing coach Kevin Deschain's key to beating Feehan was containing Montagna. Despite focusing on Montagna, he was unstoppable. Montagna rushed for 4 touchdowns and just under 200 yards in Feehan's 28-7 victory. To cap off a decorated Feehan career and a 7-win senior campaign, Montagna rushed for 2 touchdowns, threw for 145 yards and another touchdown on Thanksgiving Day versus St. Raphael's.
Mike Montagna was our quarterback, started in his junior year and senior year. He had such a presence in the huddle. He commanded the huddle in the respect of his teammates. And he was a quiet leader. You know, some quarterbacks or some young kids in that kind of position, that innate leadership role as the quarterback is, when you're in the huddle, those 20 eyes are looking at you. That you have to believe in what you're doing. You have to exude confidence in the play. And he did it quietly. You know what I mean? He had a toughness about him, a blue-collarness about him that commanded respect from his teammates. But most importantly, he had a toughness. That he played quarterback for us, and he's one of the toughest football players I've ever coached. And he played quarterback. If we allowed our quarterbacks to play defense, he would have been an all-star Mike linebacker. That's how tough Mike was. And second to that was his accuracy with the football, throwing the ball, his dexterity in the pocket, his awareness in the pocket, his ability to avoid rush, his knowledge of the offense and his command of it and where the ball should go, how he could place the ball with a lot of zip and pepper on it, or he could float one over, you know, a linebacker in front of a safety. He just had an awesome way about him on the field and the way he could throw the ball. He knew where to throw the ball. He knew on what time to throw the ball. The thing that really sticks out with me, he made so many plays for us on offense. In particular, one thing that stands out to me was they were playing a state championship game against Hingham. Hingham was an outstanding football team. And we're driving down and we're trying to score right before the half. We had 2 minutes left and we're driving down or whatever. And we had another Hall of Famer, Ronnie Conway, on our team. And so Hingham was going to double and vice and almost triple cover him. And Mike dropped back as time was expiring and laced the ball down the seam to Dennis Antonino, another Hall of Famer. I'm blessed to have them all, you know, and just put it right on target. And we would all want to look back at those things and say, wow, what a great play. But really, where Mike left his mark on that game was at the end of the game. We're up by 7, and we have to run out the clock. And I do not want to give the ball back to this football team. They're that good. So we ran a lot of triple option in our offense. So we used a certain formation, and we said, okay, we're going to spread them out. They're going to double cover Ronnie over here. It's going to leave a vacancy over here. But how can we run triple option if we only have one back in the backfield? So we didn't. And we kind of draw it up in the sand and said, Mike, you're going to just brush fake the fullback. We're going to let him kick out the end and just keep the ball. And he looked at me and I said, just keep it, Mike. We ran the play about 10 times in a row. 3 yards, 5 yards, 7 yards, and Mike is getting cracked. Bam, bam, bam. I mean, they're trying to rip the ball out. I don't know how many times we ran the play in a row. It had to be at least a dozen. We ran out the clock, and Mike Montagna carried the ball every play and carried us to victory. And that was in his junior year. So imagine what he could do in his senior year as a leader from that point on. He's definitely a Hall of Famer. I'm really proud and blessed to have Coach Mike Montagna.
The Attleboro Area Hall of Fame proudly welcomes Bishop Feehan High School's Mike Montagna. From the North Attleboro class of 2013, Eric Beckwith. Being 6 feet 2 inches tall and 270 pounds, you would assume that Eric Beckwith would be a plodding lineman. That would be a huge mistake. As a 2-year starter at both offensive and defensive tackle, Beckwith was a handful to deal with. Defensively, Eric finished his career with 62 tackles, 9 assists, and 6.5 sacks. Offensively, he anchored an offensive line that paved the way for Rocketeer running backs to average 6.3 yards per carry and score 295 points. That's at a rate of 27 points per game. What stood out the most was the camaraderie among his teammates and the lifelong bond that was formed.
Eric Beckwith was a 6'2", 270-pound offensive and defensive tackle for us. Eric played mostly in the 2011-2012 season. As a sophomore, we really didn't have to use him too much because he was on a pretty talented team, but he gave us some good depth there, and it gave him a chance to develop as a sophomore. That sophomore season was the team that went 10-1. It was an outstanding offensive team, so Eric gave us great depth on that team and helped that team score a lot of points. During his junior year, he had a huge impact. That team went 9-1 and won a Hockomock championship, and he was a two-way player on that team, offensively and defensively. Definitely stood out on defense, a big body with great feet who got involved in a lot of tackles. Well, Eric was one of those defensive tackles that really learned how to play defense on the other side of the line of scrimmage. So he was very aggressive and again had those great feet. So for a tackle, he actually got a lot of sacks just because he was so quick and a big body that could run past those offensive linemen. Eric actually played a pivotal role in our big overtime win against Stoughton. Fellow Hall of Famer Paul Norris cited it as perhaps his biggest play of his career, scoring the winning points in that game on a tight end screen, but it was actually Eric Beckwith, who was one of the linemen out in front of Paul, that basically enveloped the safety from Stoughton, made him disappear from the field, and allowed Paul to walk right in. So that was a peak moment, I think, for Eric as well. As a senior, again, he was just an immense force on both sides of the ball. That senior team was a great team and actually started the year with 2 great victories over Division I opponents from 2 different states. So we started the year that year with a 47-27 win over LaSalle Academy from Providence, and then the next week we drove up and beat BC High 27-7. Neither of those games against good programs would have been victories without Eric Beckwith on the field. Eric was also a Hockomock League All-Star and Sun Chronicle All-Star, who was also recruited by Sean Walsh to go play at Bentley University, and he had a great career playing on offensive line at Bentley as well. Overall, Eric was just a great player for us. Great size, great speed, but I think what I remember most about him was just his demeanor. He wasn't always the most serious guy on the field, and what he did was he found a way to have a lot of fun, whether it was practice or game, and that rubbed off on other people, I think. He was a really good teammate, and he was a real pleasure to coach.
The Attleboro Area Hall of Fame proudly welcomes North Attleboro High School Eric Beckwith. Annually, we have honorary inductees as the final inductees. Mike McGrath, honorary inductee from Bishop Feehan High School, class of 1967. In 1996, Bishop Feehan High School developed strategic plans to organize its alumni and upgrade the school's 35-year-old campus and facilities. Among those plans was the dream to build an on-site field at Holcott Drive. For years, Feehan athletes walked 1/2 mile through the woods to play their games at Haywood Field, once the home of the Attleboro High School athletics. Motivated by the love of his teammates, the sport of football, his desire to honor his father, and to help Feehan, Mike responded to Feehan's request for help with a transformational 6-figure contribution to allow Feehan to build McGrath Stadium, which featured a lighted on-campus game field circumscribed by a new 6-lane track. 15 years later, in 2011, again, Mike assisted his alma mater to celebrate its 50th anniversary, helping to underwrite the cost of a new track and synthetic turf field. It's no exaggeration to say that if it were not for the generosity of graduate Mike McGrath, Bishop Feehan High School would not be the school that it is today. Mike McGrath, whose philanthropy allowed the school to build McGrath Stadium, named in honor of his dad, his deceased dad, John McGrath, which was constructed in 1997, without question was the most transformational thing that ever occurred at the school in its 50 years, and therefore we thought that would be an ideal entry to have Mike as an honorary inductee for the 50th anniversary of the Attleboro Area Football Hall of Fame. I think what made Mike's philanthropy so unusual were a couple of things. One is that, number one, Mike lives in Maine. The school is located in Attleboro. His kids would probably never come to the school, or even his grandchildren. They don't live in this particular area. And Mike wasn't a star on that team. Like most of us who participated in high school sports, we were participants. There are a few stars in every team. We all know that. They're being honored here and have been inducted to the Hall of Fame. But Mike was somebody who had an appreciation of football as part of his education. And I think in one sense, as such, he valued the camaraderie of the playing. He valued the life lessons that were learned, second effort, things like that. And he was eminently successful because of some of the lessons he learned in football.
It was all about giving back. Giving back for what I saw as a life-changing lesson that I learned from football. I wasn't that good of an athlete. In fact, one of my coaches once called me aside and said, "McGrath, you have deceptive speed. You're a lot slower than you look." But seriously, our football team worked very, very hard, and we went undefeated. That taught me a lesson that I carried forward in life, was that if you worked hard and worked harder than everybody else, you could achieve whatever you wanted to achieve. There have been thousands of students that have played different sports on that field since we donated it. And I'd like to think that many of them got a lot out of that and got a lot of enjoyment and a lot of benefit from playing on that field.
Well, with the introduction of McGrath Stadium to Bishop Feehan High School, it really was the beginning of a new era as far as the facilities for the players who were participating in football and soccer, both boys and girls soccer. Previous to that, like many schools, the use of off-campus facilities were used for those sports. But with the development of McGrath Stadium, football and boys and girls soccer were brought back to the campus at Bishop Feehan High School. There always was the track involved there, but with the development of McGrath Stadium, the track was rebuilt, and so now we had football, boys and girls soccer, and track at the stadium. And just a wonderful situation through the generosity of Mike McGrath and Diane McGrath, who are named after their family. So it certainly has had a wonderful impact upon the players, the students, and the supporters of Bishop Feehan High School.
The Attleboro Area Football Hall of Fame proudly welcomes honorary inductee Bishop Feehan High School's Mike McGrath. Tonight's second honorary inductee, also from Bishop Feehan, Kurt Smith. If you met Kurt Smith and asked him about his success at Bishop Feehan, he would humbly respond that he was surrounded by great coaches and outstanding players. Kurt held a range of roles for the Shamrocks over 2 separate tours of duty from 2001 to 2005 and from 2010 to 2016. Head coach for 8 of these years, defensive coordinator for 12 years, and offensive coordinator for 7 seasons. Throughout those seasons are some truly lofty accomplishments. 5 Super Bowl championships, 8 Eastern Athletic League titles, 38-game unbeaten streak, and a 2012 Boston Globe Coach of the Year. He coached, mentored 16 current Shamrocks in the Attleboro Area Football Hall of Fame.
Came to us back in the early 2000s as previously coached at Somerset. Came to Feehan as an assistant coach, and right away we knew that we had somebody who was special, particularly as a defensive coach. And that we were in the midst of a run of Super Bowl participations, and Kurt took over in 2004 and had a record of 11-1. And went to the Super Bowl, and we were Super Bowl champions. Defeated Hingham. I think the score was 28-19. That was Kurt's first stop at Feehan. Kurt was not a professional teacher, but he was an excellent teacher. But he had to leave after that one Super Bowl appearance and championship because of his employment. We were fortunate enough to get him back a few years later, and again he took us to a Super Bowl. In fact, our 8th Super Bowl. He's an excellent teacher, as I mentioned, but he's a real class guy, and he really connected with the kids, and not just in the sense of football, but how to behave, how to have class, and he was a great example of it. And 2 Super Bowls in his appearances at his time at Feehan, and we could not be more respectful of Kurt and his time at Feehan, and we're happy to see that he's being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
It's humbling to be recognized as a Hall of Famer now, but really and truly, we're only as good as those that we coach. Coaches lose games and kids win them, and I was blessed to have the opportunity to coach great kids and with great coaches, and to have the opportunity to give back to those kids that need it. And I hope that if I'm remembered for anything, that I was remembered for a guy that understood that football requires toughness. You have to be tough. You have to teach toughness, mental toughness, because your body will follow in your mental toughness. But I hope that everyone I coached can understand and walk away knowing that when I was tough, it was always backed up with love. That I think toughness without love is fruitless today. So more than any accolades that I could do, I didn't do it alone. It was no fault of mine. It was due to a lot of other people, but very blessed to have the opportunity to coach, such great kids, humble kids, and humble great coaches. And I hope that I'm remembered for being a good guy. who happened to be hopefully a decent coach.
The Attleboro Area Hall of Fame proudly welcomes honorary inductee from Bishop Feehan, Kurt Smith. We'll also be honoring North Attleboro's 38-game winning streak that spanned 4 seasons from 1997 to 2000. The streak. To have a winning record in southeastern Massachusetts is an accomplishment. Winning 38 consecutive games across 4 seasons is truly remarkable. From September 13th of 1997 until October 20th of 2000, the Big Red Machine could not be stopped. In 32 out of 38 games, opponents were held to 2 touchdowns or fewer. The defense and special teams recorded 11 touchdowns and limited the competition to under 11 points per game. The offense in this 4-year span was equally as prolific, averaging over 4 touchdowns per game. Over 4 years, there were 185 touchdowns scored while amassing over 14,000 yards of offense and surpassing 1,300 points scored.
We had a couple heartbreaking seasons in the prior 2 years, losing the Super Bowl in '95 to Marshfield, and then in our junior year we had lost to Mansfield for a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So we felt like we had unfinished business to win a championship, and so that was just, the year was just pretty much all business for us at that point. I think the thing that people in our class would like to believe is that what we did that year and the way we carried ourselves, that the kids in the sophomore year and the junior year classes could learn from that and saw how we faced adversity and came together to achieve a common goal, that they would follow that and take that into the future. And I think obviously history shows they did that.
I mean, every game was a battle. We didn't have the talent to take any games off, so you know, the games didn't really stick out. It was more the compete and practice. Every week just got more intense. As we won, we started to really pick it up in practice. People would laughed at us and thought that, you know, we'd be lucky to go 500, so we kind of internally viewed that as it's us against them, and we kind of just played that way. So, you know, everyone wanted to compete.
It's kind of remarkable when you consider, you know, some of the things that occurred. I've had the good fortune to coach a lot of good players and a lot of good teams, and have come to appreciate how difficult it is to string together, you know, 5, 6, or 7 wins in a row, never mind 38. The competition was very good, and then you had the playoffs and the actual Super Bowl win, so it was kind of a, you know, it certainly added to the streak.
You know, it was important to us because, you know, I think all the classes just wanted to continue the winning tradition in North Attleboro. And I guess each class that, you know, came after a Super Bowl winning class, we just wanted to, you know, keep things going. And so, yeah, so maybe the pressure mounted for each additional class, but I think we all were ready to embrace that challenge. We really just followed the precedent that was set by the upperclassmen, that winning precedent. And we actually had a decent number of guys get a good amount of playing experience at the varsity level. So by the time our senior year came around, I think we saw what the capabilities of this team was, and we just knew we were primed to make another run at our 3rd Super Bowl championship.
You know, you're not going to be successful or have a streak unless you have some exceptional players, and we were fortunate to have those exceptional players. You know, they were smart kids, tough kids, and kids who were very unselfish. But in addition to those kids, we had a lot of hard-nosed, blue-collar type kids. You know, kids who, you know, on the defensive side of the ball were willing to take on blocks so that linebackers could run and go and make tackles. Or on the offensive side, these were these kids who were making the blocks. So, you know, these good athletes, our running backs, would be able to go off and score.
I think the recipe to success is really something that was relatively simple and started in the mid-90s, and that was LTD, loyalty, toughness, and discipline. I don't think there's any doubt that all these teams possess those three characteristics and really truly believe them and live them every day, whether it was practice, games, or in school. Without those three characteristics and a program that has completely bought into them, I don't think that level of success would have been obtainable.
I remember the night that the streak ended, and I was a senior captain and I wasn't able to play in that game because I was coming off an injury. So I just remember being on the sideline, being really disappointed. You know, it was a really tough game, it was a dogfight, and I felt like there was nothing that I could do to help my team while they were out there fighting. So that was a disappointing feeling, but I also remember at the end of that game going into the locker room and seeing all my teammates, you know, and they were, you know, covered in sweat, you know, people were crying. There was blood, people had to go to the hospital for exhaustion, dehydration, and I just remember looking around that locker room at that time, and it was one of the proudest moments that I had as a captain of that team, because I could honestly say that even though the streak had ended, we left everything that we had out on the field. There was nothing left. Our tanks were empty, and we did everything that we possibly could to maintain, you know, that level of excellence for as long as we could.
The Attleboro Area Hall of Fame proudly welcomes the North Attleboro High School team members that are here that participated in the 38-game streak. Excuse me. I'd like to ask the players and coaches from the winning streak to stand at this time. Congratulations to all of the 2022 inductees, and I'd like to ask all of the inductees to please stand and remain standing while we give them a round of applause. Please remain standing. Please remain standing. And now I'd like to ask all those present who are members of the Hall of Fame, please stand at this time and join our newest inductees. Let's not be shy, gentlemen. Let's stand up. Thank you. As we conclude our evening program, I'd like to offer a few final thoughts about the legacy of the Hall of Fame. Had COVID not eliminated the last 2 years' historic 50th year, which really in essence is 2020, we would have presented this last year. As a 1966 Bishop Feehan graduate and a football player, a 44-year teacher, coach, and administrator at Bishop Feehan, and a lifelong resident of Attleboro and then North Attleboro, I've had the privilege of attending 48 of the 50 Hall of Fame banquets. Tradition, inclusion, community. Tradition. Football games have been played between the communities of North Attleboro and Attleboro for 100 years. As you heard in tonight's introductory remarks, 50 years ago in 1970, Attleboro High School Athletic Director Bill Madden, along with several local sports enthusiasts from these two communities, conceived of an idea to honor their football athletes and to build community spirit by creating a Football Hall of Fame. What made that Hall of Fame unique, as was pointed out earlier, was that it represented two communities, Attleboro and North Attleboro. And so they established an annual pre-Thanksgiving banquet to celebrate and honor the players, the coaches, and the loyal supporters for their roles in establishing and sustaining the great tradition of football in Attleboro and North Attleboro. Inclusion. What made the Attleboro Area Football Hall of Fame even more unique was the founding fathers decided to include a third school, Bishop Feehan High School, located in Attleboro. Feehan had students from both communities. Boldly and courageously, the Attleboro and North Attleboro communities made the decision to include Feehan in their newly formed Hall of Fame. It was the community's way of saying to Feehan, join us. Early Feehan graduates, of which I am one, have never forgotten this magnanimous gesture of inclusion, an act of acceptance that over time has strengthened the relationship of the three schools and their graduates. Community. The Attleboro Area Football Hall of Fame has done more for community building than many other initiatives. Over the years, the intense competition has remained but collegiality and friendship have always been victorious, and the Football Hall of Fame has played a key role in fostering those values. The Football Hall of Fame has initiated and cultivated both player and community friendships, and in addition, our inductees' achievements remind us that the game of football can be a source of many other enduring values, among them sacrifice, hard work, perseverance, respect, and generosity. Along with thousands of players and fans who've had the privilege of attending these Hall of Fame events, I think I can say with conviction that the Attleboro and the North Attleboro communities are better for the creation and the existence of this Attleboro Area Football Hall of Fame. And like tonight's events, like the 49 others that preceded it, it continues to remind us all of those benefits. This concludes our induction ceremony, but certainly not our evening and our continued fellowship. To the attendees and honorees, thank you for coming. When you leave, please take the program with you and walk down memory lane by reading a list of the former inductees that are listed in the back. And finally, if you enjoyed tonight's events, please spread the word about your experience. Consider joining us next November and encourage your friends to do so as well. I'd ask you right now if you would please stand for the concluding benediction. Please bow your heads in prayer. Dear God, we thank you for the gifts of football, friends, and family, and the opportunity to celebrate all three of these blessings tonight. And during this season of Thanksgiving, we especially thank you for all that we have, and we pray that we never forget those who have not. Amen. Thank you very much. Glad you're here.